Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing. Coming up on this episode.
As I said, they got to kill me to stop me. I'm never going to retire. I've realized that the journey is the joy. When surveyed, there was a survey this year, and they asked parents of children and pets, what do you like better? And 2/3 of them said the pet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. And today I have a very special guest. Okay, every guest I have is special, but man, when I have a gentleman on that has been in franchising for a long time, a really long time, 10,000 locations across his brands. I have the founder of Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax. Guess who? John Hewitt. Welcome to the show, John.
Lance, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I am so excited to have you here. So, John, take us back to the day that you decided you were going to get into the world of franchising, what you knew about it way back when versus maybe even how it is today.
One of the many blessings in my life, I learned at 20 years old what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I've interviewed 1,000 people, and almost none of them know what they want to do when they grow up. But my dad was trying to buy a H&R Block franchise in Hamburg, New York, where we lived, a suburb of Buffalo, while I was at the University of Buffalo. And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we're going to open a company store in Hamburg. Why don't you have your son take our course and maybe he could work for us? And H&R Block was 95% franchised at that time, but they happened to be opening a company store there. And I took the course. I loved it, and it changed my life. I just completed my 55th tax season, all in franchise companies.
That's amazing. So you were in H&R Block, and at what point did you say, I'm going to go out on my own and do my own thing?
My dad reached out again. And changed my life. He was CFO of a public company in 1981, and he bought one of the first apples by mail in the late 70s. It's so old that it's in the Smithsonian, and it's an antique apple, if there is such a thing. And he said, we're going to computerize taxes. Let's computerize taxes. So it took him quite a while. It took him almost a year, because I was really happy running 250 stores at Block. I was in my peak and my prime and loving life. And he said, I'm going to do it. And so he did, and I followed him, and we built the first tax software for an Apple computer, 1981. Wow. No one wanted it. So I found a company called Mel Jackson Tax Service. And we bought Mel Jackson from his widow, 6 stores here in Virginia Beach. Again, blessed because I moved my family here, and the weather here is so much nicer than Buffalo.
What's wrong with Buffalo?
I love Buffalo, except it's cold. I even love snow. I just don't like the cold.
15 feet of snow in the middle of the winter.
Exactly. But I can deal with that. I just don't want it to be below freezing.
Got it.
So I moved my family here in August of 82 and been here ever since.
Yeah.
And Jackson Hewitt's a large franchisor with 6,000 locations.
Unbelievable. So at the time you got into the tax space, and really your dad teed this up for you, like, hey, you take the course, see if you like it. You said it earlier, most people don't know what they want. They don't even know what they like. I gave you an example before we hit record here, talking about a friend of mine that owns a bunch of hair salons. He's bald and doesn't know how to cut hair. So how would you advise people for all these brands that don't sound that great? They don't sound sexy, John. How do you know what is appropriate for you or not today?
That's not an easy decision. But what I've seen, and I brought in 5,200 franchisees, and so I've learned from them, and in that process, I've talked to another 5,200 who didn't become franchise. And one of the things we always do is check to see if they should be self-employed, because a lot more people think they should be than can be. But the next step is, what industry should they be in? And my general philosophy is, find something you love to do, work hard, and persevere. So, for example, in our pet grooming business, which is our fastest growing, everyone owns a dog.
Yes.
100% of our owners own a dog, and they know they love pets. So I mean, life is too short. And it's funny that you work for Thank God It's Friday, because I invented Thank God It's Monday. On Monday morning, if you're not looking forward to where you're going to the wrong place. You're right. Life is short. Find something you love to do, something that you can wrap your arms around and be proud of.
Yeah. So you would advise people that even if they know nothing about plumbing or HVAC or cutting hair, it still might be something for you if the business model resonates.
That's exactly right. And what we do, and I've done in my entire career, is, because half of the people I brought into taxes didn't know anything about taxes. So I offer, and we explain why this industry is great, right? It's seasonal, it's recession proof. You get to deal with the IRS, and everyone's afraid of the IRS, and et cetera, et cetera. So we
Yeah.
go through all the ideas, but I welcome anyone who's thinking of this industry that's never been in the industry
Yeah.
to come and work with us.
Yeah.
Come and be in the office and see if you like it. I wouldn't join an industry without spending a few days in the field.
Yeah. It just dawned on me that the only two things in life that are guaranteed are death and taxes. So it is a great business for you to be in.
It's virtually recession proof, but there is a third one. Lance, I learned a third one. And Benjamin Franklin said 250 years ago, there's two certainties, death and taxes. But Dennis Waitley, an author I like so much that I had him keynote speaker at my convention at Jackson Hewitt, he wrote a book and he said, no, 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 there's one more. And he wrote it about 1990. He said, there's going to be change. And boy, have there been change in my lifetime and in history, right? All the history I can think of, but think of all the change that you've seen in your history, even today,
Yes.
right? This little cell phone, it has, not only is it one, I never owned a camera. The only time I ever took pictures with this cell phone.
Yeah.
And 35 years ago, there was no such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great stuff. So let's also talk about your book. I want to dive into that. Just one little piece of that. Your book, I Compete. How my extraordinary strategy for winning can be yours. So what would you tell someone? One strategy, one piece of advice based on the book.
Well, one of my favorite authors, and so I stole this, is Stan Phelps. And in one of his books, he says that you never arrive to a meeting exactly on time. If the meeting is noon, sometimes you're there a couple minutes earlier, or an hour earlier, 20 minutes late. Almost no one arrives exactly on time. And so he said, in the same sense, that with customers, you never exactly meet their expectations. You almost never exactly. So you either exceed customers' expectations or you fail to meet them. So since I read that, I've changed my philosophy on how to measure our performance. We measure it by exceeding a higher percentage of customers' expectations. We're never going to be 100%. You can never be 100%. So every year, our goal is to exceed a higher percentage of customers' expectations.
I love that. That's fantastic. So, with all of your success in the world of tax, at what point did you decide I'm going to make that transition? A lot of people would have said, I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to go move to Costa Rica. I'm going to go retire to Florida. Clearly, that's not you. And you're too young for that. But What, but what was your motivation? There's a point where you make enough money that some people want to retire. Some people want to do something else. In your case, you start doing other industries. How did this all come about?
There, there's a lot of questions in that. So let me
Start
address
wherever you want.
let me address as I can. When I was young, when I was a teenager, I was very self-confident, but I hadn't succeeded at anything, so I was just cocky. And my self-confidence and cockiness, I knew I was going to get rich. We were poor, but I knew I was going to get rich. I knew I was going to make millions of dollars. And I said, I can't wait. I'll make millions of dollars and then retire. But along the journey, I realized that what would I do?
Yeah.
There was nothing more rewarding than changing people's lives. And having brought in over 5,000 franchisees and they had hundreds of thousands of employees, and I've had thousands of employees, then I've realized that the journey is the joy. The when you sell your company and you get a $483 million check in 1997 when we sold Jackson Hewitt, that as a public company, that's not that's just a blip on the map, right? And then you go on to your next thing of helping more people, and helping people is legitimately the most rewarding thing you can do on this planet. And right now, as far as retiring, I'm so appreciative of all I've achieved, and God requires you to give back. And I'm at the pinnacle of my career in knowledge and expertise. And to go sit on a beach somewhere and not share it with things like podcasts and mentoring, and I mean, what a waste of a life I would have.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I said, they got to kill me to stop me. I'm never going to retire.
I love it. I want to go back to something you just said. When you were young, you knew you would be rich and you were cocky. And sometimes that's a great combination. Maybe that's an opportunity to learn. Sometimes people fail. Sometimes people fail a lot. How did you know you were going to get rich?
It was because the name of my book is I Compete. I'm a competitor. So whether it's in school or sports or business, I'm a competitor. I'm going to win. I'm going to exceed. That's just I'm fanatical.
Yeah.
And I saw Dennis Rodman, and I'm not a fan. I'm a zero fan of Dennis Rodman. He turns me totally off. But I saw him recently on Facebook or something, and he was being interviewed. And he apparently, as a basketball player, didn't get along with any of it. Not only the opponents, he didn't get along with his own teammates. And he said, and it was a great question that they asked him, how did you get along with Michael Jordan, the greatest player of all time? And he said, because when Michael and I have one thing in common, when we set foot on that court, we would rather die than lose. We would rather die than lose. We're given not 100%, not 110%. We're given 200%. We both were obsessive about winning. And he said, like Vince Lombardi said, winning isn't everything; it's the only thing. And so I've always been a fanatical. I'm a bad loser, but on the other hand, my theory is if you show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. So where did you make that transition from all those years in tax to doing something else? What was that first business outside of tax?
yeah, well, I was in my non-compete after selling Liberty Tax, and I left in 2018. So I was in my non-compete, and I couldn't compete in either United States or Canada in tax. So I was just deciding what I was going to do. And having dinner with one of my former employees, who's a franchise attorney. He had been a franchise attorney for me starting in 1992 at Jackson Hewitt, and then he came aboard with me at Liberty, and then now he was in business for himself. He said, John, why do you want to get back in tax? You've been doing that for 50 years, right? He said, I have, for example, why don't you think about this? That I, for example, I have this company, and it's a business broker company. And so it's instead of selling houses, they sell businesses. And he said, you know, they're 13 years old and they only have 13 franchises. They're all making good money. It's a great system, but they can't grow. Why don't you nurture and help sell and grow my little chains of franchise? Why don't you join them and help them grow? And so that was my first venture outside of tax. We merged with that company and helped them grow, and now they have over 100 locations.
Love it. And then you said, hey, this is kind of fun. Let's do this again. Let's add more, because today the umbrella company or the parent company is loyalty brands. So what other interesting brands do you have?
The excited the Other than tax, the two fastest growing is my new fastest growing that is just 2 years old. Is already in the top 10% of franchisors that are less than two years old is roofing. So it's called CR3 Roofing, and so they do construction, but primarily led by roofing and siding and exterior. They do mostly exteriors, but they'll do all construction. So that's an exciting new brand. My 3-year-old brand is already top 1% fastest growing in the country, and I've learned to love pets in the last three years since we started that. It's mobile pet grooming, and I love pets so much now that we just acquired another one that is a storefront mobile or storefront grooming. And so we have an initiative, everything pets, because pets in society have changed over the last 30 years. 30 years ago, remember they used to have the joke about the man had to go out in the doghouse when his wife was mad at him. The dogs stayed outside and there were doghouses. Over the last 30
Yeah.
years, there's not doghouses anymore. They sleep inside on your bed, right? So
Such a great point that you're making here.
right,
Yes.
people are dogs are replacing children. Many
Yeah.
many 20, 30, 40-year olds I meet, and I ask them about, do you have children? Well, I have my pet. I mean, I have my pet Alex, right? I mean, my pet Rocky. I mean, they are replacing children with pets, and even the ones that have both. When surveyed, there was a survey this year, and they asked parents of children and pets, what do you like better? And 2/3 of them said the pet.
I believe it. I believe it.
So I love pets, and our Zoomin Groomin is already, this year will be, before the end of 2024, will be the #1 largest mobile grooming service in the country, and within 5 years we'll have 3,000 across the country. So I have 6,000. I got to 6,000 Jackson Hewitts, 4,000 Liberties, and we'll have 3,000 mobile vans. And household will be my third household name.
John, so many brands don't even get to 100 locations. So few brands even get to 100 locations. We're talking thousands with you.
Exactly. Not even 500 franchisors have gotten to 100 locations
Yeah.
in this country.
Pretty amazing statistic. So the pet space, it sounds like, is one of your new favorites. I mean, home service brands are always great. People are always looking for things. You said it earlier, recession proof. And I get asked all the time, Lance, I want something that's a need, not a want. Well, I'm sensing a theme for everything we've discussed so far. Everything we're talking about is an absolute need, right?
Absolutely. And you have to get a new roof every 15 years or you can't get insurance. And there's so much need, and there's a trend in weather over the last 25, 30 years where there's a lot more storms. So every time there's a hailstorm or a windstorm or a hurricane, roofers are like salivating.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to things over the years, we were talking about Apple earlier and technology. How has technology really changed franchising from when you started to today? I mean, what do you see? And for those people on the fence about a franchise, why would I do a franchise? I have to spend that 50,000, invest that $50,000 franchise fee. And obviously it can vary depending on the brand, what that franchise fee is. How do I get value in that? So what do you say to that in regards to value for the franchise fee, and talk a little bit about how technology's changed?
Yeah, the technologies are dramatic. I mean, people can't even imagine, unless you're my age, you can't even imagine what's happened. Back in the 80s, when we were first filing tax returns, we couldn't even print them because it required a laser printer. And a laser printer back in the 80s, when I was franchising at Jackson Hewitt, cost $250,000. So a tax preparer couldn't afford it. And now for decades they've been under $500. And if you use a toner company, you can get it for free, your laser printer for free. So I mean, just simple things like that, and it's so much easier to do your spreadsheets and your accounting and your taxes and everything, your CRMs, and your keeping track of customers and all of that, so much simpler. There's so much data at your fingertips now. It's just incredibly amazing, and almost too much so, almost so much data that people they drown in data. So you got to be careful to look at them. And each business comes down to just 2 or 3 pieces of critical information. Like in tax, it's how many tax returns did you do? What was the average fee? And what was the number of payroll hours? That's what you need to know each day. But you get so much massive data, you tend to get off track, and you miss the basics. So technology can be bad too, and you can depend too much on technology. So you have to be careful and use common sense with technology. As far as which franchise and why I did or why franchise versus going on your own. I do a webinar every week, and one of my webinars I spent an hour, and I came up with, these are the 30 reasons that you should be a franchisee versus doing it yourself. 30 reasons, and it took me a whole hour. So we don't have time today to spend an hour talking about it.
Top reason.
The top reason is the critical component of, there's 2 things to having a successful business. One is a person. Well, I already got that. And the second is the system of doing business. And so we give you a proven system that you won't be able to replicate my tax system if you work 30 years in the industry. It's cream of the crop, best in the world, best in the industry, that I've been fine tuning for 55 years. And if you came into the tax business, Lance, you couldn't invent something or think of something or try something that we haven't tried and failed at, or succeeded at, or seen. We've either tried or failed, tried everything you can think of. So your job as a franchisee is to replicate that system, not to create anything. You don't have to create anything. So the key reason to get a franchise is it's critical to have a system of doing business. You can take years. You'll never get to my level, but it'll take 5 years. You'll only be 80% of my level. And so your investment is both time and money. Time is much more precious than money. Time is irreplaceable.
I love that. That's such a great answer. So as far as that technology goes, and as far as where we are today, must be a pretty dramatic difference between where you started and where you are with these new brands now, because now we have digital marketing and Google AdWords and Facebook ads and all these different things going on. So how do you keep that sort of special, if you will, and continuously provide value to franchisees today with marketing? Do you do it in-house? Do you have an agency you work with across all your brands?
My chief marketing officer has been with me for 35 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
she helped me develop Jackson Hewitt and build it to $483 million company. She then, when I left Jackson Hewitt, she left with me and built Liberty Tax to a $500 million company. And then when I left Liberty, she left and joined me at Loyalty. So I don't get involved in that, and I don't need to. Well, I
Good.
learned a long time ago that people with great strengths, Peter Drucker, great author, says people with great strengths have great weaknesses. And so, and I do have great strengths shown by my great success, but therefore I have great weaknesses. And a
Yeah.
couple of my weaknesses are detail. I'm just not a good detail person,
Yep.
and I'm not ever going to learn how to do digital marketing or online marketing. I have people. So someone came to me, they were getting ready for their company really to take a hockey stick growth. And they said, well, who do I hire? Who are my first hires? They were small. They had 6 offices and they were going to 500. And they wanted to go to 500. And I said, who's my first hire? I said, you hire people for your weaknesses. So,
Yes.
so I hire people for detail, CFO, chief marketing officer, chief technology officer. I hire people that offset my weakness. If both of us think the same, one of us is useless.
Yeah. I love that. That's my new favorite quote.
Really?
If both of us think the same, one of us is useless. I
Right.
love it.
And
Absolutely.
if you're CEO, it's the other guy's useless.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, and that's what you think of in terms of the people. When you said you need 2 things to build a business, you need a person, you hopefully, if you're the franchisee, and the system to follow. How do you know in the process, all of these thousands of franchisees that you and your team have selected over the years, how do you know at some point in the process that somebody is not right or they're going to just fail and they don't belong in your system?
I learned a long time ago that when I brought in new franchisees, it didn't matter how smart they were, it didn't matter how educated they were, it didn't matter how experienced they were. It mattered one thing. I give them a system that's better than anyone else's. It has differentiators that makes it better. It's clearly objectively better than in tax business. Then our system at Jackson Hewitt was better than H&R Block. Our system at Liberty was better than H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt. Our system at ATAX is better than all 3 of them. So I give you the best system. So your job is to follow that system. Now, Lance, you would think that was automatic. I've been doing this for 55 years. Half of the people that joined me never were in taxes before. And
Yes.
yet, I mean, in my career, in my 5,200 franchisees I brought in, no one listens 100%.
Yeah.
So we make you come all the way through the process. If you're not gonna listen over 90%, you're gonna fail. If you want to really be extraordinary, you got to listen 98 or 99%. I wish people would listen 100%. Life would be so much easier for them and for me, because when a franchisee fails, they can blame themselves or me, and I always get blamed first.
Yes.
Now,
That's
most of them eventually work through that and quickly come through that it was their fault. But yeah, we make you come all the way and attend the training, and to see if at some point you're not following the system. And that's a whole 60-day process. So there's a system in coming onboarding. And if you're not following, so let's say you come to the system, you fool us, and you're not going to listen, and you open in January. Well, we know how many tax returns you should be doing every day.
yeah.
And so if you're not meeting your goals in January, we're going to send you an email. If you and say you're not doing it right, here's what you need to change. If that doesn't work, we call you. And if
Yeah.
that doesn't work, we come and see you. We don't wait until April 15th. We're bugging you every step of the way. And at every point, if you're not paying attention and you're not meeting the goals that we both have agreed that are your goals, then we're going to be bugging you and telling you to sell. Just why don't you leave? Why don't you go find somewhere else to be extraordinary? God has a place for everyone to be extraordinary. This isn't your place. Go somewhere else.
I love that. I love the accountability that you're describing because, as you know, there are franchise brands that will not hold you accountable to that level. There are brands, I know of home service brands that do exactly what you described, where we know exactly how many bids you're supposed to be doing, for air conditioning per se,
Mhm.
and your team's not doing it. You don't have to be doing it, but somebody on your team needs to be doing it. That's why you got into this franchise. So
Right.
I love that accountability. So how do you really advise people, those listening, whether it's a franchise brand under the Loyalty Brands umbrella or any other franchise, what are they supposed to look for? Like, how big does a brand need to be for somebody to feel confident that this is a great brand for them? Talk about that size factor, if you will.
Yeah, that's very important for this reason that we haven't talked about yet, and that is that 80% of franchisors fail. 80% fail. And every year over the last 10 years, 10 years ago, there were 4,000 franchisors that belonged to the International Franchise Association. Today, there's 4,000 franchisors that belong to the International Franchise Association. And every year for the last 10 years, there have been over 400 new brands. So if they're adding 400 and they're not growing, that means 400 are starting and 400 are failing. Can I give you a quiz? I haven't asked you one question. So
Absolutely. Go right
okay.
ahead.
Okay. So you've been in franchising for a long time. And out of the 4,000 franchisors in the IFA, International Franchise Association, how many do you need to be in the top 50% of number of locations? If we just value it on number of locations, how many do you need? How many locations do you have to be in the top 50%?
Top 50%?
50, top half.
Top half, you probably only need 150 locations.
20.
Oh, geez, it's that low.
20. It's horrible. It's
I
horrible.
love it.
So the standard that's commonly used by the International Franchise Association said if you're going to be successful as a franchisor, you need to have over 100 locations. But the real key to a successful franchise, it ends up being locations, but it really starts with this: a commitment to franchisees. In our philosophy, it's happy, successful franchisees. If you have happy, successful franchisees, you're going to grow exponentially. The minute they stop being happy and successful, not happy or happy and successful, you're going to start declining. So it all comes down to the franchisees. So talk to the franchisees, make sure they're both happy and satisfied or successful.
I love that answer. John, you are a wealth of knowledge, so I'd love to talk to you all day. I would like to say final thoughts, final words of wisdom for the audience on anything franchising.
Yeah, be very careful. Make sure you pick a great franchise. If you do, then it's better to franchise than be self-employed. But my theory is find something you love to do, work hard, persevere.
I love it. John Hewitt, founder of Jackson Hewitt, Liberty Tax, and so much more. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lance.
My pleasure.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.